Okay, so my presentation will be very straightforward and short, just to like to provide you with an overview of figures, the incidence of the disease in our citriculture today and what's new today, and on that, and then each colleague will talk in further details about it. So what about our citriculture? What happened in the last years, figures, and what has been done in terms of disease control under the leadership of Fundecitrus? So here we have data from the last crop estimate in inventory. We have 465,000 hectares planted. Out of this total number, for 90%, 401 is refers to orange. Acid lime and lemons also account for 8%, and 2% refer to tangerines. Our citriculture fluctuates in production. The finished year was one of the highest yield in our citriculture history. This year we have the yield of 762 boxes per hectare, but still beyond our record in the previous year of 1,100 due to adverse conditions. And our estimate for this year is 289 million boxes. That shows that we are going through a very good time because our juice inventory is low. Here, reinforcing yield data, you can see that for the last 2 decades, the yield, although we have greening, our yield has grown since 2004, and that's because citrus growers, even with all adverse effects, they become more professional. They reinvent themselves and their operations. We have overcome the problem of CVC. Today we came from 40% to 3%, the citrus variegated chlorosis. So we have the migration of citriculture to more adequate or proper regions. We have better yield per area in terms of the management that we have used, and that has then guaranteed the sleep in yield. And also we have the better quality of the nursery plants. That's been also a revolution in the last 15 years that has allowed us earlier production with higher yield as well. So what about graining? Well, we were fortunate, and we had the honor of having had Professor Beauvais as our major master in our institution for almost 20 years. That history had started with his alert 5 years prior to the disease. When the disease was detected in 2004, Fundecitrus had already issued 4 seminars, 4 alerts, talking about the risk or the hazard and the presence of diaphorina and our concern of not bringing materials or vegetal materials from abroad. One of the colleagues that was part of that seminar was the one that found the problem in the field later on. So that concern was already imminent, and the disease was present in Africa and Asia, but not in the Americas. Then, in 2004, we detected a new species that is Liberibacter americana that was led also by Fundecitrus, and also we have the Liberibacter asiaticus before. And as of July this year, we have declared war against this disease. We know that differently from the field, from the tristeza and CVC, this disease would require much more efforts, many more efforts. I remember, as if it were today, that in a meeting at Fundecitrus, someone asked Professor Beauvais if he was sure that we would be able to control the disease, and his answer was really straightforward. He said, I'm not sure, I believe so, but I'm sure that if you don't do your homework, citriculture will be destroyed, so try and do the best. So we have to, refer to what's been said before, zero error. And that's what we are going to be talking about today in terms of what happened in each place of the world and what has been done. So vital is timing. the right time. That is, if we start acting in a second phase when we have an exponential disease curve, then it's practically impossible for you to reverse the disease. So we have to take strong action, uh, city by city, farm by farm, so that we can be successful. I would say that some factors were determining and decisive that helped us come to a good control, although the incidence of 17%. First is that due to CVC, we already had a production of nursery plants in a protected environment. We talked a lot with our Master Navarro, that is also here, that helped us a lot, and he was really decisive in our work with the nurseries. The field scouting for CVC and our controlling a vector like the shooters for the control of the Xylella fastidiosa that was already in place. And then our partnership with citrus growers and the government resulted in an action plan and communication that was very solid. Also, our research network, besides our team carrying out survey, all the research carried out in different institutions around the world, that was all vital. And after 4 years, we had a meeting to discuss with citrus growers to show our success cases. And out of the work, together with the companies and citrus growers, a paper resulted that was authored by our colleague Velasquez. That was the paper that showed why, under certain circumstances, the management system worked and in some other cases didn't. So those success cases showed us the direction to take. So back to the development of the disease. The disease was detected in 2004 in a few cities in this region of Araraquara and Descalvado, 5 of them. And then in a survey carried out as of August, that at that time we started to see the disease in other areas. And then the disease grew year after year in a distribution that involves today more than 400 cities in the state of Sao Paulo and also Paraná, Minas, in Paraguay as well, in Misiones, in Argentina, and probably other states we have not detected because we have not inspected enough. So it came out of Florida in 2005, and it's now in California and most of the countries in Central America as well. What about figures today? This is for the last 3 years, around 17%. Then it grew, and then there was a certain flattening of the figure, and we have to take care of interpreting that result. Maybe that's because of the regional management together with the company, so we kept that figure under control. But there was a lot of eradication, especially in the central and the southern regions in the last few years, that helped us decrease that figure. We have to be really careful when we interpret that figure. We should not celebrate. We should rather be attentive to that figure. When we look at severity now, we can see that out of the almost 17% of diseased plants, almost 5% has higher severity. That is when we have a production lost or loss of 50 to 70%. That is a problem because a diseased plant will not be healed, and every year severity increases. So in the last year, 2017, we had losses because of fruit drop of 16 million boxes out of a total of 498. That is 4%, let alone the reduction of the fruit size as well, because that has caused also 5 to 6% of loss a year with a trend to increase severity. So we have to have strong action in terms of all that. This map here, this graph, shows very well our reality in different regions. In the central and the south, areas where the disease was detected first, we have the highest indexes, 24% in Araraquara, Matão, and 32 in the Porto Ferreira, Mogi region. That's where we had the highest levels of eradication due to the disease. Another factor that has been studied is that both the insect, the psyllid, and the bacteria, they perform optimally in the central areas. The two extremes, that is, too hot or too cold, conditions are not that favorable, as Professor Paha can confirm. Also, Professor Lopez, they worked a lot with the bacteria in the plant. Here, in the last inventory recently issued, we see that out of the 29 thousand hectares, almost 20 were eradicated in the central south region, where incidence of greening is highest. So most of this eradication is due to the high severity of the disease in such regions. Now, in terms of the incidence of Huanglongbeng per age of the trees, the higher the age, the older the trees, the higher the incidence. Once the plant is infected, you may either eradicate it or the plant will keep diseased. So we have to work with this number to make it go down if you want to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's our challenge afterwards, because we want to decrease that curve, especially for younger groves, so that in the mid-term situation is better than what it is today. Another important point that we have to draw your attention to refers to the size of the farms. We know that this disease has a very large effect of what we call the border effect, that is the migration of the psyllid from the non-commercial area or grove to the commercial one. So the index of 16.7% in groves that above 500 plants has 2.4%, whereas in groves of small farms, above 36% is this number. That is totally different. So that is very worrisome, because socially, if we do not have a strong action, then the small growers will be the ones suffering the most because of that disease. This graph recently published in our tree inventory, and that is available on our website as of today. It shows that out of the total of more 7,588 farms, this number came down to 5,882. So almost 1,700 farms no longer exist. So we have here, in terms of citrus production, so those farms got out of that business. So that is a point that we have to think of. The only area that grew was referring to the larger farms, and that has significant effect on the controlling of the disease. I'm not going to go into details, because you're going to have each speaker, each colleague from different companies to make comments on what to do in terms of control, internal, external, what's new in terms of control. But I would say that this disease, differently from CVC that had 3 measures, this is much more complex. The region, each region has to have a control a different way, and we have 2 ways to go. Internal control with emphasis on borders and critical shooting times, and also the external actions. Citrus growers should look beyond their farm gates and fences. That is a break in paradigm, because you have to worry about a non-commercial area that is 2-3 kilometers away from your farm. So that is a new concept that we think to be fundamental to decrease this border effect, mainly. If we were to sum up in a few words what we have had in terms of development in the last few years, and what the recommendations would be for our citrus growers, here at Fundecitrus? Well, first we have to have rigorous control of psyllids, and the frequency is fundamental here. We have to have more rigor in the new shootings and in the border area. We have to use systemic insecticide in young growths and use the right mixture volume and also frequency for control of psyllid. We have biological control with the use of Tamarixia radiata, especially in abandoned areas, as Professor Paha is going to talk about. We have in this meeting, we're going to be launching a new bioinsecticide that will also be an important tool for internal and external areas. So this external action is important, and also the regional management. That is vital. What we have in short term, we have pheromone that is midterm. I think Dr. Walter from California will talk about this. We are privileged to have him here. He's going to talk about that, and in partnership with Fundecitrus as Exalc, and also have kaolin being used as a repellent to psyllids. The final message here is that for you to be successful, well, this is not only a matter concerning the citrus growers, industry, or agronomists, but rather this is a problem for the whole society, and we have to do it all to involve society so that we are successful. So I'd like to close my presentation by thanking you all for coming, and I wish this meeting is successful and is full of very interesting discussions along these 2 days this week. Thank you very much.